Hello students, today we are going to discuss about tourism impact mitigation and adaptation. Are you ready? Let's begin. After completing this lesson, you are expected to provide examples of how tourism affects our world, explain how tourism contributes to climate change, explain how climate change impacts the tourism industry, enumerate mitigation and adaptation measures by the tourism sectors and destinations, and explain how tourists may modify their behavior to minimize their carbon footprint. So first, let us have a review of the negative impacts of tourism on economic, social, and environmental aspects. So first is the economic negative impacts of tourism. We have here dependence on external labor and management expertise, residents losing control of tourism to outside investors, residents losing jobs to outside workers, leakage, increased prices, overdependence, decline of traditional economic activities. For social aspect, we have loss of privacy, irritation due to crowding, loss of access to beach and other natural resources, increased crime, possible drug problem, prostitution, decreased social cohesion as migrants come in, decline of community values, conflict due to unmet expectations, and diseases like SARS and bird flu or even COVID-19 pandemic. For environmental aspects, we have here contribution to climate change, water pollution, damage to coral reefs, beach erosion, overconsumption of certain animal species, inadvertent introduction of alien species of animals, loss of animal species due to demand for animal parts, cruelty to animals, disruption of wildlife breeding cycles and behaviors, air, visual, noise, and light pollution, garbage and littering, soil contamination from pesticides, groundwater contamination from chemicals leached by golf courses, vandalized facilities, buildings, and monuments, water shortage, electricity shortage, destruction of mangroves, and destruction of caves. Now let's move on to the tourism impact mitigation measures. But first, let us define what is mitigation. According to Sharma in 2011, mitigation is defined as the implementation of measures designed to reduce the undesirable effects of a proposed action on the environment. So it is more on reducing the negative impacts of tourism. So there are three general types of mitigation measures. These are prevention and control, which is done by changing the means or techniques, changing the site, or specifying operating practices. Next is compensation, which is done by offsetting adverse impacts in one area with improvements elsewhere. Or remediation or correction, which is done by repairing or restoring the environment after damage is done. So we have here 5 mitigation measures. So number 1 is policy instruments, 2 technical, 3 design, 4 capacity building, and 5 behavioral modification. So let us go through these mitigation measures one by one. So for policy instruments, we have here examples of policies that you could implement in the destination to mitigate the negative impacts of tourism. So we have here proof of financial capacity, local laws and ordinances on construction and development, protected area system, taxation, environmental fees, and food purchase policy. So you could implement these policies, for example, the proof of financial capacity, in which you will only accept those investors who could provide a specific range of capital before they could invest in the destination. Of course, to limit the number of investors. And here are examples of technology. So you can use LED lighting because LED lighting is more environmentally sustainable. You can also use motion sensing flash and lighting, alternative energy like solar system, like what they do in Palawan and other destinations here in the Philippines. You can also use key cards, low volume flush toilets, or you can also use composed toilets such as what you can see in this picture, which is an eco toilet at Tuacoin Eco Village in East Timor. You can also use soap dispensers, inverter type air conditioning, rainwater cisterns, mooring buoys, aerators, CFC-free minibars, and teleconferencing facilities. Here we have a green design principle. So we have first the pre-design and site planning stage. So first is you need to conduct environmental impact statements. So you need to know what could be the possible environmental impacts in the destination, both positive and negative. So you need to conduct an assessment. Next is preserve vegetation and topsoil. You may also reuse old buildings and renovate them. Allow passive design, maintain solar access, facilitate pedestrianization, or use local community facilities. In some buildings, what they do is they design the buildings to have the light illuminate using the natural light of the sun. So usually they use transparent ceilings, or sometimes they put plants inside the building. In Japan, actually, they have this building where there are plants inside because it's part of their greenhouse project. Even in China, they also have this building that has a environmental conservation concept in which in a building they could plant their different types of plants. So that is an example of this design principle. So next is concept design stage. You can maximize the views, design appropriate solar access, maximize natural lighting and ventilation for specific climate and location. Like in Baguio, they do not have air conditioning unit there because they usually take advantage with the natural cold temperature of the area. Next is consider integrated sustainable systems like for energy, water, and waste systems. And building design must support ecological lifestyles such as recycling. So we have also here guidelines for selecting materials. So as much as possible, choose renewable resources. Minimize the use of new materials. Select materials with lower embodied energy and select materials with low toxicity and off-gassing. So for planning for energy use, reduce power consumption through passive solar design. Select energy-efficient appliances, lights, and sensor system, and encourage the use of alternative energy. For planning for water use and others, as much as possible, conserve water. Use plants that do not need too much water. Build on already disturbed land. And design to facilitate recycling of waste. For construction management, specify on-site environmental control and specify on-site waste minimization. There is actually this project in, I think it was in Australia, in which they have recycled their wastewater. They have this wastewater management system. So before they throw their wastewater to the ocean, they first treat it. So the first step in the process was to separate the solid waste with the liquid waste. And then they also separate those materials that could be recycled or reused. And then after that, they will treat the water. And then after it has been treated, they will use it, some of it will be used as a water resource for a plantation nearby, while others are thrown in the ocean. For building operation and management, incorporate delivery of building operations manual as part of standard service. Work with clients to formulate maintenance strategy. And here are the tourism development standards. So avoid environmental hazards as much as possible. Avoid steep hillsides, active fault lines, and flood-prone areas. So before you put up your building, you must assess first if it is safe to invest there or build an infrastructure there. Next is maintain scenic views, so orient windows to scenery. So it would be beneficial for the view of the tourist, and at the same time it is to avoid visual pollution. For site coverage density, the maximum size coverage for resort is 25%. And the general maximum densities, it is double guest rooms per hectare. For low is 25, medium 62, and high is for 125. For building heights, the building height limit will depend on the site and the kind of atmosphere the builders wish to create. If a natural look is desired, building should not be higher than the trees so that guests could appreciate the beauty of the nature. But if you like to have this skyscrapers design, so you can build tall buildings like in Hong Kong, in China, they have a very high buildings there because they are also maximizing the space. But here in the Philippines, as much as possible, we would limit the height of the buildings. For building setbacks, 12 meters or less and up to 500 meters from the mean high water line, and cottages spaced 10 meters apart. For landscaping, landscape design should be a component of the development plan. Trees have to be carefully root balled and replanted elsewhere on the site, like what they do in the US. So they do not just cut the trees, but instead they replant them. As much as possible, you also use endemic plants. Artificial lakes may be used to moderate temperature. What are the benefits of these? It creates attractive setting, screens unwanted views, provides relief from the sun's heat, acts as a windbreaker, and provides focal points. For vehicle parking should be integrated into the landscaping plan to minimize visual impact. Parking areas may be broken down into smaller units by changes of level and vegetation for shade and visual amelioration. Car parking spaces should be 2.4 meters by 4.8 meters with a minimum area of 30 square meters per space for open car parking. Adequate parking spaces for buses should be provided, like what we have experienced in one of the temples in Bali. They have a very wide parking spaces for buses because it is one of the famous tourist attractions there, and they have really developed their facilities. So they really complied with this requirement. Parking should be located off street and to the side or behind the building. For utility lines, it must be placed underground. Not like here in the Philippines that most of the utility lines are placed on top. Especially here in Tagum, there are lots of utility lines that we can see on the street, and some of them looks dangerous because the wires are tangled with each other, and anytime it could cause a danger to the public. It might explode or anything that could create a fire. For the architectural design, incorporate traditional styles, prefer local materials, shun coral blocks, chooses roof lines based on topography and climate. This is what I really admire from other Asian countries that I have visited, especially in Cambodia and Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore, because you can really see their local or traditional style of architectural design. Though some of their buildings there have modern facilities or modern design, but still you can see a touch of the local culture that you can really say that, wow, I'm in Thailand, I am in Cambodia, I am in Malaysia. But here in the Philippines, it is very rare that we could see locally designed buildings or infrastructures. Even in, I think that was in Indonesia that I saw a bridge that the design of the the bridge is quite like traditional, because there are patterns of the local tradition there. So you can really say that they are incorporating their culture even in their architectural designs. For roads, you should be at least 6 meters wide for two-way traffic circulation roads and should have a minimum radius of 6 meters for turning circles. So here are the resort development guidelines. Number 1, infrastructure must maintain environmental quality and offer quality tourism experience. Specific land use, development, and design standards must maintain the resort's character and quality. There must be a variety of attractions and services, as well as services for the surrounding communities. High quality of tourism products and services must be maintained through development and operational standards. Resort plan must allow adjustments to changing market trends, but modifications should maintain the resort's basic concept, because that is your prime marketing strategy, to maintain your basic concept. Next is development must consider provisions for employee training and housing and community services, especially if your resort is far from the urban proper or the city proper. You must at least provide housing to your staff or employees. Resorts should be developed within its regional context, as regional infrastructure and other improvements are often required as part of the resort development project. Adequate access to the resort is essential to attract the desired tourist market. So this is what I appreciate now with the Department of Tourism, because under the TIEZA project, they are developing those roads that could access the tourist attractions within the Philippines. So what is a beach? So a beach is defined as the sloping area of unconsolidated material, typically sand, that extends landward from the mean high water mark to the area where there is a marked change in the material or natural physiographic form, or when there is no such marked change in the material or natural physiographic form. The beach shall be deemed to extend to a distance of 20 meters landward from the mean high water mark, or such lesser area as may be determined by the authorities, and shall include the primary sand dune. So here are the needs for beach setbacks. The beach setbacks serve as buffer zones to prevent accretion or erosion, damage control, improve vistas, provide access, and offer privacy. These are the building height guidelines for beach resorts in Boracay according to Municipal Ordinance number 2000-131 of Malay Aklan. There should be a 25-meter distance from the beach marker or water line. It should have a no-build zone, or as what you can see here in the picture, there should be no establishment that is built in this area. 5 meters from the NBZ to 15 meters away therefrom, there should be a limit of 6 meters tall for the building, single-story building only. For 15.1 meters from the no-build zone to 25 meters away therefrom, there should be a limit of 8.5 meters tall for a 2-story building only. And from 25.1 meters from the NBZ to 50 meters therefrom, there is a limit of 10.5 meters tall building. For 50.1 meters from the NBZ to 150 meters therefrom, there is a limit of 12 meters tall for a building. And from 150 meters away from the NBZ, the limit is 14 meters tall building. Now, let us go to the green infrastructure guidelines. So, what do we mean by green infrastructure? The use of ecosystems, green spaces, and water in strategic land use planning to deliver environmental and quality of life benefits. It includes parks, open spaces, playing fields, woodlands, wetlands, road verges, allotments, and private gardens. So these are the elements of green infrastructure. At the strategic level, there should be civic scale spaces, public parks and gardens, green networks, country and regional parks, natural or semi-natural green spaces, forests and woodlands, grasslands, designed landscapes, formal gardens, city farms, blue networks, rivers, loch, and wetlands. At the neighborhood level, amenity green space, informal recreation spaces, play spaces, allotments, community growing spaces, playing fields, sports areas, urban parks, burial grounds or cemeteries, swales. It is a low tract of land that is usually moist or marshy, urban woodlands, ponds, and watercourses. At the street level, boundary features such as hedges, street trees, verges or borders, swales, porous paving, sustainable urban drainage systems. Trees can be used for traffic calming, add visual interest, improve microclimate, and provide valuable wildlife habitats. Actually, here in Tagum, it is one of the advantage that we became the Palm City of the South because the palm trees that are planted along the highways upon entering Tagum City is really pleasing to the eye. So it is a very good strategy. At the building level, green roofs, living walls or walls with vegetation, gardens or grounds, rainwater harvesting system, and driveways which is permeable. So these are the benefits of green infrastructure. For placemaking, it gives places a strong identity. For economic value, it boosts property value. It helps attract businesses and outside investors. For climate change mitigation, it helps reduce CO2 emissions by encouraging walking and cycling, provides carbon storage and sequestration in vegetation, shelter and protection from extreme weather, reduces flood risk, stores surface water in times of peak flow, cleans and cools the air, water, and soil, reducing the heat island effect of urban areas, and saves energy by insulating buildings through green roofs and providing shade through large trees. For environmental health, it reduces pollution through the use of SUDs and buffer strips. It prevents fragmentation of habitats and allows diverse habitats to thrive. For community and social benefits, it creates green spaces for socializing, interaction, and events, gives children more opportunities and places to play. For health and well-being, it encourages exercise and physical activity by providing spaces for walking, cycling, and sports. And it also improves mental well-being. So here we can also apply behavioral modification. So we have 10 R's for sustainable tourist behavior. Number 1, recognize that behavior creates substantial consequences. Number 2, refuse to buy products that use materials from endangered species. Reduce consumption of local resources to what you actually need. Replace experiences with those that have fewer or no impacts on the environment. Reuse products, recycle products for a different purpose, re-engineer behavior by active personal intervention, such as by suggesting to tour guides that you just want to view wildlife from a safe distance so that you will not disturb the animals. Retrain in order to develop physically and learn new personal skills to cope better in new situations. Reward yourself by taking advantage of incentives to promote sustainable activities, and re-educate people to adopt long-term sustainable personal behavior. So here are some of the visitor management techniques. So you may control visitor numbers to reduce use, set boundaries, manage the timing of use, manage visitor behavior, manage visitor expectations, increase the resistance of the resource, harden sites to reduce erosion, maintain and rehabilitate resource, prohibit vehicles and certain types of equipment, require visitors to bring certain equipment, provide different media for interpretation, and limit entry of groups from accredited tour operators only. So as you can see in the picture here, visitors to the Puerto Princesa Underground River are required to register as there is a daily quota in the number that can visit the site. So you need to get a permit first before you could go to the Puerto Princesa Underground River, because they are actually applying the carrying capacity principle. So now let's talk about the climate change and tourism. So climate is defined as the average daily weather for an extended period of time at a certain location, while weather reflects the short-term conditions of the atmosphere in terms of temperature, precipitation, humidity, wind velocity, wind direction, air pressure, and cloud cover. And climate change is defined as the changes in long-term averages of daily weather, which is brought about by natural variability of human activity. So climate as an important resource of tourism. Climate affects seasonality of travel flows, the types of tourist activities in a destination, the quality of tourist experiences, and cost of business operations, among others. Because as we all know, if it rains, it will affect the ongoing activity in a destination. When the rain might cancel an event or a specific trip, especially when there is a storm. Climate also shapes the culture of places in terms of what people wear, eat, and do. So as you observe, those that are living in the tropical country have different skin complexion and even outfit or clothes with those people living in countries that experience 4 seasons. It also plays a large role in creating the identities and images of destinations. So tourism is partially responsible for climate change as it contributes about 5% of carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere, especially the airline industry. So here are some facts about climate change. So climate change is already happening. The Philippines ranks 6th in climate change vulnerability index in 2011. The average temperature increased by 0.76 degrees Celsius between 1850 and 1899 and between 2001 and 2005. So this is attributed to human activities. Unless greenhouse gas emissions is reduced, temperature will increase by 1.8 degrees Celsius to 4.0 degrees Celsius by the end of the 21st century. Some of the World Heritage sites are actually vulnerable to climate change. So here are some of the World Heritage sites identified as vulnerable to climate change. We have Venice, Italy, in which we can observe that the sea level is rising. So some people say that Venice is a drowning island because as we all know, Venice is surrounded by the rising sea level. Next is the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, in which they are experiencing their coral bleaching and mortality. We also have the glacier retreat in Glacier Waterton International Peace Park in USA and Canada, and flooding and eroding in Chan Chan Archaeological Zone in Peru. So what is the impact of climate change on tourism? So climate change could create infrastructure damage to property, business interruptions, higher operating expenses, reduced landscape aesthetic, altered agricultural production, increasing incidence of vector-borne diseases, beach or coastal erosion, water shortage, biodiversity loss, coral bleaching, bushfires, glacier retreat or reduced snow cover, which is usually can affect those winter type resorts. Extensive species losses, up to 30% of species at increasing risk of extinction. extreme storms, increased risk of skin cancer, and change in timing of blooming of tourism important plants. So we have here impact mitigation and adaptation. So again, mitigation is defined as an anthropogenic or a human intervention to reduce the sources or enhance the sinks of greenhouse gases. Adaptation is defined as adjustment in natural or human systems in response to actual or expected climatic stimuli or their effects, which moderate harm or exploit beneficial opportunities. It is also anticipating the adverse effects of climate change and taking appropriate action to prevent or minimize the damage they can cause, or taking advantage of opportunities that may arise. And it is also defined as a process by which strategies aiming to moderate, cope with, and take advantage of the consequences of climate events are enhanced, developed, and implemented. For coral bleaching, to prevent this, cooler water from deeper areas may be sprayed onto the surface. Awnings may be used on buoys to shade corals. For ski resorts and winter destinations, rebranding ski resorts to four-season resorts, offering non-winter activities such as golf, boating, and whitewater rafting, etc. Advertising campaigns to target honeymooners and families. Upgrade of air conditioning to counter summer heat, discounting room rates and offering new hurricane interruption policies. And ski slopes to be relocated to higher altitudes and glaciers and have resorted to artificial snowmaking. But the artificial snowmaking is quite expensive and it's not good for the environment. For change timing of blooming of tourism important plants, using sprays and injecting plant hormones and piling snow on the base of trees to delay onset of blossoms, planting tulip bulbs in shady locations, using heavily mulched flower beds, building snow fences to increase snow cover on flower beds, planting bulbs with different rates of maturation. For transport sector, especially in the airline industry, maintaining a younger fleet of aircraft, achieving average load factor of at least 80%, removing excess amounts of water and catering to reduce weight, more efficient flight paths, and maximizing seat density. For tour operator, replacing distant destinations with closer ones that offer similar attraction value, supporting low-carbon holiday options, developing new low-carbon products. Examples are train-based holidays, offering high-standard carbon offsets for journeys by air. For rental car companies, using smaller, lighter, and slower gas or diesel or hybrid cars. For accommodation sector, you may set temperatures in guest rooms at 20 degrees to 25 degrees Celsius. Employing passive cooling, use thermostats and sensors, use energy-efficient lighting, key cards for hotel rooms, adapt to a no disposable packaging policy. So some hotels actually now use glass bottled drinking water, or as much as possible they avoid using plastic made packaging or those that cannot be recycled. Use worms to recycle food wastes. Use reusable cloth laundry bags. Use potted plants instead of cut flowers. Use anti-cockroach herbal treatment in paste form, which does not require cleaning up as no chemicals are used. For restaurants, procure locally produced food, favor organic food products, increase the proportion of vegetables in meals, cool down hot food before storing it in refrigerators or freezers. Do not overfill refrigerators. Ensure doors are fit and properly closed with seals in good condition. Ensure refrigerator compressor belts maintain proper tension. Defrost freezers frequently. Frost build-ups reduce efficiency. For destinations officially highlighting and working toward the goal of tourism sustainability, restructuring source markets to attract low-carbon tourists, provide low-carbon public transport. Oh, in the Philippines now, we are actually using e-cars, which is an environmentally sustainable project. Next is communicating pro-environmental action, striving for carbon neutrality. So, carbon neutrality is a state when the amount of greenhouse gases being emitted into the atmosphere is totally offset or sequestered by carbon sinks such as forests or trees. So, as much as possible, we avoid cutting trees and we plant more. In Puerto Princesa City, it is considered as the only carbon neutral city in the Philippines. So if you are a nature lover and you would like to explore an ecotourism site or sustainable tourism site, the best recommended destination for you is Puerto Princesa City in Palawan, or even Coron and El Nido, because they have really applied almost all of these mitigation measures. Alright, so that's the end of our lesson. Any question, you may ask it to your professor. See you!